The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Friday, the 22nd of January, 2016, are currently trading with gold at $1,097.53 an ounce, silver $14.02 an ounce, Texas crude $29.53 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 380 U.S. currency. Today in history, Monday, January 22nd, 1506. The first contingent of 150 soldiers entered the city of Rome, marking the Swiss Guard's foundation as the Pontifical Swiss Guard. In recent news, Dwayne Walling, former mayor of Detroit, who in April of 2014, before local news, raised a glass of water as he pushed the button connecting Flint River to the city of Flint's water treatment plant, setting into motion one of the worst lead contaminations of a municipal water system in U.S. history, said that he was deeply sorry for all the problems with Flint's water and that he regrets he didn't somehow find out more about what was really happening. The contaminant? High levels of lead, one of the most dangerous neurotoxins for infants, which leached from the miles of underground piping which negligence at city, state, and federal levels failed to detect or even incorporate emergency protocols for, as required under federal law. This at first turned the water brown, giving it a chlorine odor. As Flint residents began to complain about the color, smell, and taste of their water, state officials were dismissive, according to emails released this week by Rick Snyder's office, Republican governor of Michigan. Even while many residents were complaining of rashes, the contamination wasn't reported to the public for roughly 18 months. EPA Region 5 Administrator Susan Hedman resigned on Thursday, and Governor Rick Snyder, who appointed Scott Kincaid as emergency manager, who was responsible for approving the project, apologized for the crisis and is seeking $28 million in state funds as a down payment for fixing it. The plan was targeted towards saving millions of dollars for Flint residents by using the river instead of buying water from Detroit, at least until the new pipeline to Lake Huron could be built. After reviewing feedback from students and faculty over the past few months, the Wesleyan Private University Board of Trustees decided today that concealed handguns would not be allowed on the Texas Wesleyan University campus. President Frederick G. Slabach said in a brief statement that the feedback received from the members of the campus community was overwhelmingly in favor of remaining a gun-free campus. The Lone Star Lowdown is currently looking to fill some ad space. If you have a product or a service you'd like to advertise with us, feel free to give us a call at 210-363-2257. This has been your Lowdown for January 22nd, 2016.
Good friends, good evening and welcome here on this very, very snowy Tuesday evening. That would be Tuesday, the 26th of January, 1999. Let's party like it's 1999, 2016. My name is Tom Kiley. I'm calling you, or actually talking to you from New York City, where we had almost the record snowfall. It was off by 1/10 of an inch over this last weekend. So I'm a little bit chilly, and there's a lot of snow here, and I hope it's okay where you are. Anyhow, it's time now for INN World Report Radio. INN World Report Radio every Tuesday and Thursday night here on the Great Logos Radio Network. So then, the phone lines are open right now. I will be joined, I suppose is good enough. I'll be joined by our good friend Joe Calhoun, who's no stranger to snow himself because he lives up on the Continental Divide in the Colorado Rocky Mountains. And he'll be joining us. He's been really following the whole Donald Trump candidacy and the crazy shakeup that it is causing, not just in the Republican Party, but also among certain liberals. Okay, and it's really interesting to watch because I don't know if you've been following it or not, but a whole raft of notable movement conservatives came out just the other day against Donald Trump, I think from the National Review magazine, which, was the William F. Buckley publication. And they were all saying he'll be the end of the world. He'll be the end of the Republican Party. And there's a lot of liberals who are saying the same thing. So how do we get to that situation, where people on the right, people on the left are against Trump, who will clearly put a dent into the establishment? That's what he's doing. That's why they don't like him. So how does the people on the right and people on the left not want to see that happen? What do you think? 512-646-1984. And I think John is on the line here. So it is the John. Let's go. Hey, John, are you there?
If that's the Tom, this is the John. How are thee?
All right there, me matey, me bucko there. We could go pirate on this. So anyway, how's it going, John?
No, I just watched your video, man. Very neat. Very neat, very impressive. I love the music.
Isn't that great music? Friends, what we're talking about here is I've been studying video editing. I intend to go forward and do some video editing, and I'm making some videos for you. And I've been using other people's stuff to practice my editing with, but with this big snowstorm here in New York, I wanted to show some of my friends. I've got friends in Greece and other parts of the world, and I wanted to show you all what it looked like. So I was out there with my handheld camera from my cell phone, actually, and I took a bunch of footage and I took a bunch of stills, and then I brought it all back and I started to chop it up and put it together. I put some nice music to it. I think I made some titles, and I have a 6.5-minute video. So tell me about it. Does it show the snowstorm?
Oh, yeah.
You see it coming down.
Yeah, you could.
And, there's not really any talking in it. I just put a nice music track in the background that I thought was appropriate for a snowstorm. It's kind of a dirge, it kind of builds up slowly like the snow builds up,
Yeah.
It's actually going to be in the next rotation of bumpers. I've already got it prepared for the show. Something by Ulrich Schnaus and I think Jonas Monk. But it's a pretty song. So, there you go. So, I was trying to give people the impression of what it was like and, try to do it in an artistic sort of a way. But isn't that, John, and folks, if you're familiar with, the kind of video quality that comes out of these cell phones these days, what do you think of the video quality?
Yeah, I was very surprised at the end when you told us that you'd filmed that from your phone. That's amazing quality for a phone, man.
Yeah. And I got this phone like back in August. It's not like the latest phone. They change so often. But I'm glad you like it, and I'm going to be doing more of that sort of thing. And everyone who's listening, if you've ever sent me an email, you should be on my email list, and I'm going to send it out to you all probably tonight after the show. You can take a look. It shows my house. It shows my backyard. It shows my streets. It shows my dog, Charlie, or one of my dogs. What do you think?
Your wee dog.
That's my Charlie. My Charlie. He's a good boy. He's sleeping right behind me right now. He's curled up on a little blanket right behind me as I'm doing. He's a loyal guy. Mommy rescued him a little over a year ago. I think it was a year ago in November. He was on death row, ready to be put down because his previous owners had been evicted and they could not take him with them to their new apartment. And so he got into the New York City shelter system, and he got sick. And they don't like it spreading around to the other dogs, and they have to make space anyway. So they were going to put him down. So we fostered him. They gave us medicine, and we were going to find a home for him, but he's just too good a dog, So now I've had him for about almost a year and a half now. So that's my Charlie.
Your Charlie.
My Charlie. So you sent me an email. What else would you like to talk about, John?
I'm trying to. When I got in this afternoon, someone had put a video up here on my Facebook page, and it's about just shy of 7 minutes long, and it's about the relationship between people like Henry Ford and old Prescott Bush and Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. Now, unfortunately, it's not from YouTube, Tom.
Uh-huh.
I don't have the computer skills. I'm trying here to click on, and I've totally screwed this damn thing up now. I wanted to send it to you.
Yeah.
And if it was on YouTube, it wouldn't be a problem. But here on,
is it on a web page or something?
No. Well, hang on. It's.
Well, how are you looking at it? Did somebody give it to you on a disc, or is it on a web page?
No, someone just shared it on their Facebook page. She's a Facebook friend of mine. She's actually in Australia,
Okay.
I'm back to the beginning here now. So if I right-click...
Right-click on the link and see if it says copy link location.
Yeah, it's not giving me that. I don't know why.
So then, the only thing you can do is like send it forward to the Facebook page, maybe, because people, that's one of the nasty things about a lot of these internet companies. Okay, like especially like Facebook, and they don't want you traveling off of their site, and they don't want you. They want to force everybody to go to their site so they get more hits. So sometimes they fix it so you can't share things unless they have to go directly through Facebook, and it's very, very annoying.
Right here, if it says show video URL.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, copy that or show that, copy it, and send it to me in an email.
Okay,
that might work.
Me an https/www.
Exactly. Just copy that whole, highlight that whole thing, copy it, and paste it into an email and send it to me, and I'll be able to see it probably. So anyway, you had something else you wanted to talk about, and I asked you to call in to speak about it because I got an email from another listener this week, and you want me to introduce the topic, or would you like to bring it up?
Yeah, you can introduce it.
All right. Well, I got an email from someone this week, a good listener, and he said that, he was giving me some constructive criticism, and he said that, I talk over my guests. And I think what he meant to say was sometimes I talk over my guests, and I guess he may have been prompted to do that because I think he sent it to me on the same night or very soon after I had done my last interview, which was with Gordon Duff on Thursday night. And there was a section or two speaking with Gordon where we were sort of both talking at the same time. And then you sent me an email, basically saying a similar kind of a thing. So talk to me about this because I have opinions, but I'd like to hear from you, the audience, and anybody else would like to call in and chime in too.
I've just noticed, Thomas, for as long as I've been listening to you, that this happens quite regularly. And I wondered a long time ago, is there something wrong with the phone system where you're not hearing the other person speak? And it's happened to me when I've called in as well. I've been starting to say something, and then all of a sudden I'm aware that you're talking at the same time, so I stop talking. And I just wondered, is there some kind of thing where you're not hearing the other person? Because when he went off on you last week, that was the first thing that popped into my mind. I said, he's maybe not heard him there. So I don't know what it is, but as I say, I've been aware of it for quite some time.
Well, a couple of things. Yes, there can be technological reasons for it. Also, sometimes I think somebody stops speaking and I start, and then it's kind of like I'm the kind of guy that I just want to finish it so that I can hand it back over to the other person, so that'll happen. Other times, however, I think it happens more frequently when, here's something that you could verify, and I've gotten feedback from listeners about this as well. I don't like to play gotcha with my guests. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever seen me setting guests up, leading them down the primrose path, only to whack them with something?
No, and I was only joking when I said that in my email today.
I'm not sure what you mean, but anyway, I don't really do that, right? I don't think it's right. If I've asked somebody to come on the show, I don't want to bushwhack anybody. I do want to talk about stuff. I'm not going to pull any punches, but I'm certainly not going to, mistreat a guest and set them up to hit, unexpectedly to hit something. However, if a guest tries to pull that on me, which sometimes happens, and I think Gordon was arguing with me about something that I think on its face is just wrong, I may try to answer them, respond, and I think what happened with Gordon was that he kept going back to his original point while I was asking him a question, and then he didn't answer his question, so we kind of got stuck in a little bit of a rut there. But
yeah, I know. Listen, check your email during the break.
Okay, and then there's other things too where sometimes I just want to, get back to a point, get it out, and hand it back over to a guest, and then we both talk. Anyway, I'll be right back. This is Tom Kiley, INN World Report Radio, back right after this.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
right, good friends, welcome back. Tom Kiley, INN World Report Radio, calling in, or I should say, talking to you from a snowy New York City, where we just had quite a snowfall, 1/10 of an inch below the record of, since they've been keeping records here in New York. I think it was something like 26.8 inches, and it was coming down, and it all came down basically in 24 hours. And I think I was outside shoveling my front walk like 6 times during this thing, and I could not believe, an hour later I go back out there, it looked like I hadn't even done anything. And I made a nice video, so I'm going to send that out. If you're not on my mailing list yet and you'd like to see this, then send me an email right now, and I'll put you on the list, and you'll get the link. I put it up on a server. I did not put it on YouTube yet, but I would like your feedback. Let me know. Should I try to put it on YouTube? I don't have a YouTube channel yet, but I suppose eventually I could get one. Kind of an artistic, creative look at the big snowstorm here in New York City. And, I'm, like I said, using it to develop my video editing skills because I'd like to get back into that. INN World Report. By the way, give us a call, 512-646-1984. Phone line's open. Joe Calhoun will be joining us in about 15 minutes. But INN World Report got its start as a television program on Free Speech TV back in 2002. We would have started in 2001, but a little thing called 9/11 happened 1/2 mile down the street from us. And so that kind of knocked us off our path for a while, but we got back up and got on it. And I never did any of the video editing. I did a lot of what I do right now. I interviewed a lot of great guests and created a lot of video. I read the news sometimes too, news reader. But I never got into the editing part of it. And so I'm having a good time. I have an editing program that I got, and I'm using it, and I just like to do that. Anyhow, what do you think? 512-646-1984 about anything. And while I'm waiting for somebody to call, I came across this article just the other day, about a week ago maybe. I'll just read you the headline here and then a little bit about the article. Alberta students, this is in Alberta, Canada. Alberta students get to define their own gender. 5 big changes in new school guidelines. Education Minister David Egan spells out policies for student choice in washrooms, sports teams, and pronouns. Okay? Pick your own pronoun. I'm reading from this article now from the CBC, I think the Canadian Broadcasting Company or something. Here we go. Pick your own pronoun. The guidelines advise teachers to address each student by whatever name and pronoun that particular student chooses based on how that student self-identifies. Quote, all individuals have the right to be addressed by their own chosen name and to choose pronouns that align with their gender identity and or gender expression, the document states, end quote. It goes on to say that, quote, some individuals may not feel included in the use of the pronouns he or she and may prefer alternate pronouns such as, you ready for this? Because I don't get this one. Okay, but some students may prefer alternate pronouns such as Z, Z-E, zer, Z-I-R, her, H-I-R, quote, they, or quote, them, or might wish to express themselves or self-identify in other ways. For example, MX instead of Mr., Ms., Ms., or Miss, or no prefix at all. Okay. Legal names are still to be used by default for a school's local student information system and on official transcripts, credentials, and provincial assessments. School staff are encouraged to use students' preferred names on a day-to-day basis, however, including on written report cards, and to refrain from attaching male or female to students' names in school records. So, can you imagine? And it goes on, but boys can play on the girls' teams, girls can play on the boys' teams, and it should be up to each individual whether they use a washroom designated for males or females, according to guidelines. Specifically, the document states that students should be able to access washrooms that are congruent with their gender identity. So if a boy says, I want to be called Rachel, I guess he could go into the girls' room. And I guess the girls have to go along with it. In addition, schools are advised to provide at least one non-gendered single-stall washroom for use by any student who desires increased privacy, regardless of the reason. This type of washroom should be also easily accessible, and ideally, schools should provide several such washrooms for all students, staff, and visitors to use. That's going to be the one with the line around the block, right? And then change rooms too, like the locker rooms, different Is this like a bridge too far or 10? What do you think? 512-646-1984. I'm a very liberal, open-minded person. And I agreed with a lot of what happened in the 60s, where overarchingly conservative views were challenged, particularly when it came to race relations and, things like that. But that doesn't mean the sky's the limit. I think life is a balance, right? It's a scale, it's a balance. Just as it's possible to go too far in one direction, it's, I think, possible to go too far in the other direction. And that's just ascribing ignorance as the motive behind this stuff and not something much more pernicious, which I think could very well be at play. Because I think that, as part of a eugenicist agenda or a eugenics agenda, a depopulation agenda, I think elite oligarchs have always been concerned about having too many little people around. If you can't keep them busy on your farms or in your factories or fighting your wars, they tend to multiply and spread and, might get into trouble, might get into mischief, might get ideas that they don't need you taking a 50% cut of all the world's wealth. So they're interested in having less people, and it's hard to do because the wars are not as deadly as they were only just a few decades ago. And so one way to do that is, of course, abortion is made, very, very easily accessible, and also, any kind of moral second thoughts about it are discouraged. Contraception, which I feel is fine. But another way to do it is also by getting women into the workforce and having them work themselves to the bone and assaulting the family unit. And also hypersexualizing children, which I think is what we see going on because I think it was the great Alan Watt up in Canada who said on one of his programs that Julian Huxley, brother of Aldous Huxley, was an evolutionary biologist, whatever the hell that means. And he became the first head of the United Nations UNESCO, right? Education and was it Scientific and Cultural Organization. And I'm told that in his evolutionary biology studies, he found out that if you sexualize children at an early age, like Miley Cyrus or Madonna, they can become hypersexual in, adolescence and adulthood, and they will not be able to form lasting relationships, certainly not the kind that would produce offspring. So maybe that's what it's all about, hypersexualizing the kids, which I think is clearly going on today. And maybe this has got something to do with it. The whole, the problem I have is it can cause children to really doubt their sexuality and their identity as they're growing up. Not because they have an otherwise problem with it, but if they just see everybody else doing it. I'll be right back just after this.
Children conceived through fertility treatments are more likely to suffer serious birth defects than babies conceived naturally. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and in a moment I'll have details on a groundbreaking study on the risks of fertility treatments.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
These days, childless couples are turning to fertility clinics in record numbers, but a new study finds the risk of birth defects in babies conceived through fertility treatments is significantly higher than average. After reviewing 300,000 birth records, researchers found that 8% of fertility babies suffered from heart, genital, kidney, brain, and lung problems. That's 40% higher than babies conceived naturally. What's more, the risk of birth defects tripled when mothers use clomiphene citrate, a drug that induces ovulation. With millions of babies born each year through fertility treatments, it's about time doctors began telling their patients about these risks. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
Why are the proud descendants of Plato obey of
right, good friends, welcome back. This is Tom Kiley. It is INN War Report Radio here on this Tuesday, the 26th of the January already, 2016. A lot of snow here in New York, and our good friend Joe Calhoun's on the line. I'm sure you got a lot of snow there, too, up at the Colorado Rocky Mountain Continental Divide. How you doing, Joe?
Fine. It's sunny and warm up here, at least sunny. Yeah.
It's still daylight there.
It's actually winter is now moving east. It usually winter starts here in the west, in November. And gradually, the jet stream pushes it off to the east. So, welcome. You guys. I don't know what you're going to do. Have a late New Year's Eve and a late whatever Hanukkah, Christmas, or whatever.
Yeah, so it's still daylight there, is it? Just going down, son?
Oh, what? The sun is down. Yeah,
It's already down. Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
The sun sets during the winter solstice. The sun sets up here at 12:30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. Okay, so
behind the mountain.
Anyway, Joe, I asked you to come on the show because I know that you're all over this continuing, evolving saga. I mean, involving Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, among a lot of other things, really shaking up the establishment, almost down to its foundations, it seems to me. And it's not just the Republicans and the right-wingers. It's also a lot of people on the left that are kind of frothing at the mouth at this guy. And the overall effect is you've got these, arch liberals totally agreeing with these arch conservatives. He's bringing the country together, isn't he?
Yeah. It's almost like, I have to catch my breath when I see some of the alliances that are going on right now, of people who would never ally themselves with other people. I mean, the National Review, the Skull and Bones characters, the William F. Buckley types, the cream of the warmongers, the National Review has decided that since Cruz and Trump are the two front runners, that they are going to concede the election to Hillary Clinton, who is a McCain Democrat. In other words, the William F. Buckleys and the Kagans and the warmongers, in fact, a lot of them are Hillary Clinton's friends, want to support Cruz instead of Trump, because the problem with both of them is that Cruz opposed John McCain's foreign policy on Syria, if you remember. Cruz and Rand Paul and the Tea Party types opposed intervention in Syria.
So he's no good, and Trump opposes it too, right?
Trump opposes it too. Trump has gone even farther than Cruz and Rand Paul, saying to the effect that Libya was better under Gaddafi and that Syria is better off under Assad. And
saying that he gave a hand to Putin for what he's doing in Syria, which just about blew a gasket for everybody.
Yes, I mean, Rand Paul and Cruz haven't done that, but Cruz, even though Trump criticized John McCain, at the very beginning of his run for presidency, Cruz has been, on the ground stopping McCain's war on Syria, and so McCain hates both of them, but he hates Ted Cruz more, so he's kind of more aligned with Trump. But the National Review is deciding to support Cruz because Cruz is more likely to lose to Hillary Clinton, and they would rather have Hillary Clinton in than either Cruz or Trump.
Either Cruz or Trump.
Yes, and now some of my colleagues, I'm going to begin to have to walk away. I guess. From my.
Well, there's some arch liberals who've been on this show for years, who also hate, apparently, or are very loathsome of certainly Donald Trump and probably Ted Cruz as well, and they would like to see these people blocked. So they're on the. I never thought I'd see this, but they're on the same page with the people like you talk about from the National Review and so forth, which is absolutely astounding to me. That Trump is shaking things up so much that the arch lefties and the arch righties.
But they've actually, some of them have gone beyond that. One particular group criticized Putin for saying anything good about Donald Trump. And all Donald Trump said is that he would like to have good relations with Russia. That's all he said.
And I think he also said he thought it was what the Russians were doing in Syria was good. I think there was two things he said.
Was good. And that was also
he said I could work with Putin.
Yeah, but Putin made after Trump has been actually praising him for a month or so, Putin responded in kind. He didn't elaborate much. And one group in the United States condemned Putin for interfering in U.S. politics. Get out, they said. Butt out.
And
Well,
this is a group that was a big supporter of Putin up until that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually had a banner down at Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza welcoming Putin. And now they are calling upon the Queen's Parliament of England to lead the world in banning Donald Trump from their territory and trying and encouraging other nations to do the same. I'm sure the Nazi junta in Ukraine would be obliging to that. I'm sure Saudi Arabia would be obliging to that. I'm sure a number of countries that support the ISIS in Syria would agree to that.
I doubt the Israelis would agree to that.
The Israelis would agree. I'm sure. And I have to part ways, with these people.
Well, it's certainly strange. The point, friends, that we're trying to make here is that Donald Trump is so shaking up the right and the left that they're having a fit, and it's making for very, very, very strange bedfellows where you've got people that would otherwise hate each other's guts in total agreement that Trump needs to be stopped. And I like to, whenever I'm in a weird situation like this, Joe, I think, wait a minute, somebody must be doing something right. If you've got the two opposites attacking you, something's going on. And this is what he represents, the ultimate, I think, anti-establishment candidate that is in the race. I think he's even more anti-establishment than Ted Cruz. And I think that's what they're really upset about. What do you think?
Well, I think I'll even go one better. I think he's even more anti-establishment than Bernie Sanders.
Well, yeah, that's why I said in the race. He's certainly not the most anti-establishment person out there, but I think from both parties. Yeah, I think you could say that
he's
about
more anti-establishment than Bernie Sanders, because Sanders, Hillary Clinton got him on this one when both him and O'Malley were attacking Hillary Clinton on Libya. Hillary retorted very quickly to Bernie Sanders, "You voted for regime change in Libya." In other words, he was on board with the overthrow of Gaddafi. Bernie Sanders.
He was for it before he was against it. But wasn't he also, though, against the Iraq War, Sanders?
He was. Now, this is at the initial stage. He voted against the Iraq War. Hillary Clinton voted for it, but when she became Secretary of State, they're both McCain Democrats. They're both very close to John McCain. Bernie Sanders supported the overthrow of Gaddafi, and Bernie Sanders, to this day, supports the overthrow of Assad.
All right, hold on, Joe. We'll be right back. We're talking with our friend Joe Calhoun, and we're talking right now, anyway, about this whole shakeup that the Trump campaign is creating. We'll be right back just after this.
Easy.
Oh, yeah, rock steady. So, hi, friends. Tom Kiley here, INN World Report Radio. If you're a long-time listener to the show, you know that I am extremely intrigued by the candidacy of Donald Trump, fellow New Yorker over here. I'm in Brooklyn. He's across the river in Manhattan. I was just on the Upper East Side yesterday. I was at one piece of real estate with his name on it. There's several of them here in town. And he's really shaking things up, and he's saying some things I've never heard come out of the mouths of any politician. That's because he's not a politician, I suppose. And I thought I'd have my good friend Joe Calhoun come on because I know Joe's been following this a great deal. Joe, another billionaire is now considering a run for the presidency also, right? Michael Bloomberg. Hello? Oh, did we lose Joe? Oh, okay. I think we lost Joe. All right. He'll be right back. While we're waiting for Joe to come back. Now, another billionaire is thinking about throwing his hat in the ring. Michael Bloomberg, the mayor of New York City. I don't care for the man that much. He was my mayor for 3 terms. And in order to do that, he had to get the city council to overrule the voters' referendum that said there should be term limits on the mayor for 2 and city council members. So he overturned. I think the voters in New York City voted for that twice, and he got rid of it through city governance rather than through another referendum, even after he said he wouldn't do it. And so I'm not happy with him for that and some other things. But there it is. The income disparity in New York, the real estate prices, especially in Manhattan, have gone crazy. St. Vincent's Hospital, downtown in Greenwich Village. It's right as you enter Greenwich Village from the north on 7th Avenue South. Or that's probably right where 7th Avenue turns into 7th Avenue South at 14th Street, which is, if you're familiar with New York City, it's a long, it's like a finger, pointing down toward New Jersey. And Greenwich Village is this section of town that is below 14th Street and north of Houston Street. These are usually about 10-block areas or so, swaths. And it's a major crosstown street, 14th Street, and Houston Street is the next major crosstown street. And these tend to be stripes or bands that slice Manhattan up into the neighborhoods and into sections. And 7th Avenue is on the west side, not totally west, but not totally east either, right kind of in the middle. And as you're coming down 7th Avenue, you cross over 14th Street. And one of the landmarks that you would run into was St. Vincent's Hospital, which was created by the Sisters of Charity in the either late 1800s, early 1900s to help with an epidemic that was in New York City. And it's a great hospital, has been for years. And, run by these nuns, by these very caring women. And, all of this assault that we've had on hospitals and healthcare and everything else, it has been responsible for closing down an awful lot of hospitals here in New York City. And unfortunately, that's been one of them. And I think whenever you have something like this happen, there's chicanery going on in the background because some developers got the property and they've turned it into these super luxury condos. And it's like the most expensive it's like some crazy price, $20-something million for a condo in Greenwich Village. And this is the era of Michael Bloomberg. Okay, this is this guy. It's almost as if they want to make Manhattan a gated community for the world's wealthy people. They've, I believed, had to change some zoning laws and stuff. They're building skyscrapers now up north near Central Park South. I don't know how many. It seems like it's taller than the Empire State Building. I think it's like a big finger sticking up, like a big middle finger sticking up. It ends up being like a sundial casting shadows across Central Park. And this is the era of Michael Bloomberg. Very, very expensive buildings. The world's rich and famous and wealthy are buying these things just to use as like safety deposit boxes and stuff. And it looks like we keep losing my friend Joe. He keeps trying to call in. Maybe the gremlins are preventing him. Oh, okay. Right. Okay, let me see. Maybe we got him back here. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Let's go back live with Joe. Hi, Joe. We had a little trouble there with you.
Yes, it's and I hope this is better.
It sounds a lot better. Whatever you did.
It sounds like there's kind of a thing on the landline that goes to the computer.
Yeah.
And then they have I've noticed this is that they put some sort of signal on. When I have my computer on too, they actually, even though I'm not signed on, with the internet provider, it's still. There's still something going on.
Well, be that as it may, you're back, and let's continue. While you were not with us, I was talking about the other billionaire that's trying to throw his hat into the ring now. Maybe Michael Bloomberg, my former mayor, who I didn't care for that much, is considering a run to block Trump. Right? If it's going to be a Trump-Sanders race, he says he's going to come in as an independent. What do you think of that?
Well, what's interesting is that Donald Trump said he welcomes that. And
I don't think it's so interesting. It would probably take more votes away from the Democrats than the Republicans, I would think.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is what is going to happen where a three-way race splits the Electoral College? Yeah. In other words, Trump is the total is the total vanguard of disrupting the entire political process of this country that has been corrupted for more than a century or more. Or at least a half a century for damn sure.
Well, I think another interesting thing would be I think you'd have two Jews and a Presbyterian running for president. No, I don't think that's ever happened, has it? I don't think you've ever had one Jewish candidate.
Happened. I can't. Yeah, was there ever a Jewish candidate?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
John Kennedy was the first Catholic who was able to be elected. Maybe Al Smith. Did Al Smith run for president? I think he was a Catholic.
And I think Joe Biden is a Catholic.
Right, but he didn't. Well, maybe he ran. He never ran in the general election for president.
In the general election, no. But the interesting things that are going on, like I think I was saying to you on break, is not the processes that we see as far as the shadow, the shadow theories or the puppet theater, is who's behind what's going on to make sure things get done. And
what do you mean by that? What things get done? Make sure what things get done.
Well. There was an analysis about the 2012 election that Karl Rove rigged the election for Romney to win, but it was counter-rigged by forces in the government supporting Obama to make sure he won. In other words, now that we have, digitalized voting and everything else, that it's a question of who rigs or counter-rigs the elections anymore. In other words, I have to kind of.
Well, as far as that goes, right, my theory is that it has to be very close before they can steal it. If it's a big landslide, it's going to be hard to steal. But that could be why a Bloomberg gets in, because that would certainly probably make it a lot closer of a race. Yeah, and therefore easier to steal.
If you have, I think it was Ross Perot took 10% of the vote, mostly away from George Bush Sr., and Clinton won the presidency. But with Bloomberg in and Trump and whoever is the Democratic nominee, I think it's going to be a much, a wider split that will disrupt the Electoral College. They're going to have to go through a congressional session to decide who's president with such a split, because no candidate will probably be able to get enough electoral votes to claim the presidency.
Yeah, it would be, and it would also, if it made it a tighter race, it would be a lot easier to play games with the counting of the votes, too. If it's too big of a landslide, they can't do it.
So not only is Donald Trump, and this is my paradigm, he's attacking the war party, not the Democrats or the Republicans, the war party. And the label Democrat or Republican doesn't matter in regard to that, period. And that's why there's a faction that says we have to defeat the Republicans first. And I'm saying you have to repeat if that's your idea, then you have to also defeat the Democratic wing of the Republican Party that are some of the worst warmongers in the world. You can't say, we're going to leave Hillary Clinton alone because she's a Democrat, and we're going to concentrate on the John McCains in the Republican Party. That doesn't work for me. It's like saying we're going to have to cut off half the cancer and leave the other half, alone.
Yeah, it's a really strange situation, but I can only imagine that. Well, let me ask you a bigger question. Do you think elites are gaming this whole thing with Trump deliberately, or do you think he's truly running against them?
I think he's truly running against them. Yeah. I mean, he said things, and this is what I argue with these people. They say, "Oh, he's a fascist," and I say, "Well, what do you mean he's a fascist?" I said, "There's term limits. You can't go beyond the term limit, so the people they put in." Are limited to 8 years. And someone said it doesn't matter. The thing is set up so when he gets in, he will become a fascist leader. And I said, well, then that's the same for everybody else, isn't it? Yeah. Regardless of who gets in, we have already.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of just ad hominem against this guy rather than any kind of factual stuff. They just happen to know he'll turn into Hitler as soon as he gets in office. And I'm like, since you know so much about the future, what's the lottery number going to be next week? I'll split it with you. Hold on, Joe. Hold on. We got to go on break. We'll be right back with Joe Calhoun right after this. Friends, welcome back. Tom Kiley here. INN World Report Radio. Hour number 2 getting underway here. And our good friend Joe Calhoun is on the line. friends, if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you probably have heard Joe on the show. He's been on quite often. He's a good friend. He's a good researcher, very dedicated activist, and he's a true, I think he's a very patriotic American. Because he's a transpartisan person. He's not stuck on the right or the left. Although I must say, Joe, I feel that most of the positions I know you hold would be considered firmly on the left side of the political spectrum. However, true left, not pro-war left like these would-be lefties are these days.
Or as we would say, petty bourgeois.
Well, there you go. That's the fancy way to say it, I suppose. So anyway, we were talking about a possible third candidacy by Michael Bloomberg, and I asked you right before the break: do you think Trump is really some kind of a puppet master or puppet? Is he some kind of a front man for the oligarchy, and he's running as a populist? And once he gets in, he's going to bring the whole house down and turn it into a fascist state, like so many liberals seem to think. Or do you think he truly is an independent?
Well, I think he truly is an independent. And about turning it into a fascist state, I will make the point again. We are in a fascist state.
Well, that is another point. He would just kind of, if that's true, at least he'd get it out in the open. It'd lance the boil, right? And that's healthy too, I think. No.
Yeah, and he when I heard him say he welcomed Michael Bloomberg, they were talking before at MSNBC how if you have basically three candidates in that will kind of somewhat equally divide the vote, that's going to cause that's going to disrupt the entire corrupt political process of this country dramatically, because that's going to split the Electoral College where no candidate will get a majority of the votes to be able to become president. And so he's a true anti-establishment candidate. In other words, I think he's serious. I didn't think, and like I said, I guess the definition of, how do you know when a politician is lying? His lips move. And I think Trump's lips, are not that. There's a lot of non-politician things that he's saying. There are some politician things that he's saying. There are some things that he says that I don't think he necessarily supports or believes. But it's basically...
Well, they all do that. You see, this is what gets me.
Like
he's being held to a higher standard, I think, you can't believe Trump because... Well, wait a minute. You can't believe any of them, right? That's for sure.
I still haven't heard from someone. Well, I have. Noam Chomsky has endorsed Bernie Sanders. The namby-pamby, pro-regime change, less war left have endorsed Bernie Sanders. But as far as my, more astute colleagues that have been educated, they won't tell you who they support, except tactically. They'll support Cruz against Trump because Trump is worse, and Cruz will allow a Democrat to get in. But then they're still fuzzy about which Democrat they want in, Hillary or Bernie. I mean, and Hillary would be the ultimate disaster, in my humble opinion. And Cynthia McKinney thinks that too. She came out just with an article, op-ed piece on Russia Today, talking about how Hillary, as far as the things we're talking about outside the shadow, the puppet theater we're doing, Hillary maybe, as she said, be the bride left at the altar. That she's going to be.
Again, it happened to her in 2008, right?
And it's very interesting.
I'm sorry. In 2000, was it already 2008? Yeah, it happened in 2008 to her too.
And this is very interesting because Cynthia McKinney didn't endorse anybody in this article, but she did talk about how everyone's avoided Hillary's Benghazi connection. How all the candidates, except are giving her a free ride on this. And she said,
wait a second, Joe. Here I go. I'm talking over a guest again. On that point, and this is another thing, friends. If I seem to be talking over a guest, if a guest touches on an important point that I think can be elaborated on, I will jump in like I'm doing right now. I hope you don't mind, Joe. But on this point about Hillary getting a pass on Libya, right? It's not just the Democrats. The entire establishment is giving her a pass. And I'm talking about the Fox News people who hate her guts. All they can talk about is this very narrow aspect of the tragedy that happened on September 11th of what was it, 2011 when the or was it 2014, September 11th? When was the attack on the embassy? Anyway, that's all they
2012.
2012. There you go. That September 11, 2012. Right before the election that year, and that's all I can focus on when her exposure is so much greater than that. You know, what she did to that entire country, what she did to the people of that country, and what she did to the women of that country. And I'm watching Fox News, and they got all of these leggy women on there, very well made up and coughed and all the rest of it, and they're all talking, and then she did this, and then she did that. And they're all women. Don't they have any feeling whatsoever for other women in the world? All right, forget about it because you don't like Arabs or you don't like Islam. What about women that are now behind the burqa because of Hillary Clinton being so cavalier about their lives? And she's supposed to be this feminist.
Well, there is one person that has attacked Hillary Clinton and said she'd be a disaster for women. It's Donald Trump. And Donald Trump hasn't simply focused on Benghazi. He's focused on the fact that Hillary Clinton turned the country into a disaster, that the people were better off under Gaddafi. Yep. And what he did, and what Cynthia McKinney did put in that article, a bad year for Hillary, is she mentioned that Donald Trump, she mentioned how the movie 13 Hours was beginning to address the issue of Libya and Hillary, and how Donald Trump gave out free tickets in Des Moines, Iowa for everybody to see that movie. Yeah,
he rented the theater, didn't he? Buy up all the seats and gave them out to people.
Bought up all the seats. And
that's interesting.
And so Cynthia McKinney didn't endorse anybody,
right.
But she didn't have anything bad to say about Donald Trump.
Yeah, I like to. I should reach out to Cynthia and see if she'll come on the show to talk about this because I do respect her as a. Go ahead.
And then we do have people on the left like John Walsh, like Justin Raimondo, like Joaquin Flores, who writes for Fort Roos, the Donbass website.
Yeah.
That are all endorsing Donald Trump.
Well, I don't know if they're endorsing him, but they certainly are writing articles critical of
They're not condemning him.
That's right. They're writing articles that are critical of the attacks that the guy is getting from both right and left, but particularly from the left. You know, we had John Walsh on here a couple of weeks back talking about that. He's very, I think, a very upstanding, righteous person, you know, because he's calling his fellow lefties out on this stuff who are being unfaithful to their ideals for sure when it comes to war. I mean, Hillary, come on. This is crazy.
Yeah, and for some people who have this idea that Trump is a Mussolini, where is his SA? Where is his SS? I can tell you who Heinrich Himmler Hillary's SS is. It's Al-Qaeda in Libya. It's ISIS in Syria. Yeah. She's a fascist, New World Order fascist. In other words, she wants to support the white man's burden to recolonize Africa and the Middle East.
Well, I think this whole thing really, Joe, is, driven by the Ziocons. They've got a lot of power. And I think that they're feeling the heat because, Trump's got to be a nightmare for them. Even though Trump is on the surface ostensibly very pro-Israel, he is just trashing every one of their policies right, left, and center. He's even talking about taxing Wall Street, for crying out loud.
Taxing Wall Street. And you can go back to I think one scholar made a distinction between economic populism and cultural populism. And basically, economic populism is for, a fair wage, a living conditions, and everything else like that, infrastructure in the country, where cultural populism is destroying our, Christian values and this, that, and the other thing. And he was trying to say that people like Robert Kennedy was an economic populist as opposed to people like Trump. And I'm saying, wait a minute. And he was trying to say that Trump is beholding to banks and everything else. And I'm saying, wait a minute. Trump's his own man. Trump has a life of his own now with his wealth, like Robert Kennedy did.
Yeah. Look what happened. They killed him.
Or Franklin Roosevelt.
John F. Kennedy couldn't be bought. He didn't need the money.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
And so,
and the Bush family. I'm sorry, I'm talking over you again here. The Bush family were bought off a long time ago, so they couldn't be bought either. They didn't need to be bought, I guess.
And then they'll go to Trump's connections to Roy Cohn, or you can find pictures of Trump laughing with the Clintons at his wedding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, guess who had another connections to Roy Cohn too, and Joe McCarthy, and that was Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah. Look, you have to deal with people. This is the thing.
You deal with people, and you also change your positions over time. You find out when you've been had.
But also, Joe, this is the great harm that is deliberately intended by political correctness where, I can't agree with you on a dozen issues because I hate what you say about one issue. Okay? And this is just totally splitting up the country. It's permeated the right and the left. It's permeated the Republicans and the Democratic establishment. And they love it because when they can't get anything done for the people, they're getting everything done for the oligarchs. And this is another reason why Trump is so dangerous to them, because they're totally wrong. When it comes to economic populism, Trump's got some very major points that he doesn't get any credit for. I can go into those after the break. And when it comes to cultural populism, he's not trying to drag down the culture. He's saying, when I'm president, we're going to say Merry Christmas again to each other. Anyway, let's take a break. We're speaking with Joe Calhoun. We're talking about the Donald Trump phenomena, which is not over yet.
Now.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
All right, good friends, welcome back. Tom Kiley here, INN World Report Radio. We're talking with our good friend Joe Calhoun up in Colorado, up in the Continental Divide. And we're going to open the phone lines. Actually, Ted's on the line, so we'll be getting to Ted in just a moment. But you'll be next. We're talking about, if you call, 512-646-1984. And I'm talking about Donald Trump. Now, you've heard me talk about it a great deal. But what's your feedback? Am I totally off base here? Tell me. If the election were held today, I think that's who I would vote for. That could change. I don't know. Something could happen between now and election day that changes my opinion. But if the election were held today, I think that's who I'd vote for. Now, I've never voted for a Republican, Joe, I think for anything. And I haven't always voted Democratic, but this might be the first time, and I'll be happy to do so. How about you?
Well, if it's a case of Trump running against Hillary Clinton, I'll run and vote for Trump. I will try to bring 100 people with me. Yeah. If it's Trump against Bernie Sanders, I'll see who Trump chooses as his vice presidential running mate and see who Sanders does to make my choice in that regard.
All right, so we're going to get to Ted in a second, but I just wanted to finish up with what we were talking about on the other side of the break. Trump is an economic populist and a social populist. First of all, they try to castigate Trump because he said that he didn't think that the minimum wage should be raised nationally. However, he wants to stop illegal immigration. And that in itself would raise wages, if you ask me, especially if the people who came here illegally are asked to leave and come back legally. That in itself would raise wages, I think. And a couple of other things. And as far as on the social side of things, he clearly, thinks that political correctness has gone way too far. He says, we're going to be able to say Merry Christmas again to each other if I'm president, he said. So I think it's pretty interesting. And he certainly talks about family. He's got his own kids. He's got his own daughter, who's a very strong woman. Apparently, she's a business person. I do know people here in New York City that have had to deal with her and the Trump organization. And she appears to really know what she's doing. She seems very polite. But anyway, let's get to Ted, all right? Hold on. And you can be next, 512-646-1984. Phone lines are open now, friends, for the rest of the show. What do you think about the Donald Trump phenomenon? Hi, Ted. Are you there?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. How are you gentlemen doing tonight?
Good to hear your voice, Ted. How you doing?
Good. It's cold down here in Austin, but it's probably not as cold as in Colorado or New York right now. But
you'd be surprised. It was in the 40s, I think, today. The snow's melting. But go ahead. What would you like to say about Trump?
Well, I don't like his ego. His ego is as big as the world, as big as the universe. But one thing, how come he's a rich guy? He's made more money and lost more money than I ever will in my lifetime. Why is he not part of the oligarchy? That was what popped into my mind. And how come he's not part of the oligarchy?
Well, I've got thoughts on that, Joe. You want to take the first swipe at that one?
Well, he is part of the oligarchy. He's part of the oligarchy like the Kennedys were part of the oligarchy, like the Roosevelts were part of the oligarchy. The thing that makes him a little different is that he has a life of his own. In other words, he's independently rich. He's not beholding as much as the other candidates. Well, the Clintons are oligarchs too. I mean, the Clinton Foundation, and that's one of the more. Well, I don't want to get into that, but it's basically it's not whether you're an oligarch or not. It is who pulls your strings. And from what I've seen, at least in my perspective of the people that I supported, like the Kennedys, and is that he is rich enough that he can have a life of his own without being pulled as much as, say, Bernie Sanders or a lot of these other candidates. Well,
I would say
another oligarch. But
I would say that he's a relatively new member of the oligarchy. Okay, I don't think he's from a long line of them. And that's one thing. He's nouveau riche, right? I think also he's an oligarch who's functioned sort of locally, started in New York. He does have international business projects, but he's not like Rockefeller or somebody who has these global interests and tentacles all over the place. But also, especially with a newbie, like him, relatively speaking, it is possible, I think, for people to say enough is enough, even if they're in the oligarchy. Joe, you mentioned the Kennedys. I think they truly desired to serve the people of this country. I think both of them were killed for it by the big oligarchs, by the real ones. Okay, and I think Trump is a relatively low level one, even though he's got a lot of money. And Roosevelt also, he was a member of the oligarchy. Surely, he was in the connected families, but that doesn't necessarily absolutely preclude somebody from stepping up to the plate and doing the right thing. Does that make sense, Ted?
Yeah, it does. And also, I always think a definition of terms always helps. What is an oligarch? And that's somebody behind the scenes, I guess, who's pulling the strings, or rich families, rich people.
I think oligarchy is the Greek term, and I believe it means rule by the few. Okay? And I use it in a broader sense, perhaps improperly, to mean, powerful, wealthy people whose self-interests are so strong that they don't serve the public, the greater good. But, I don't think Donald Trump is involved in ruling, even though he is an elite and he's very rich. I don't think he's involved on that level with the Council on Foreign Relations and that kind of stuff, and the Bilderbergers and that sort of thing. So maybe he isn't even, in that sense, and maybe he's not even a member of the oligarchy. I use it in a broader sense for the well-connected. But I would like to respond to your first point, if I may, about his ego. Remember that? What did you say about his ego?
It's as big as the world.
Okay. All right.
System.
It's as big as his head, right? His hairdo. Yeah. All right. Look, let's take a step back. All right. And, ego is typically used as a pejorative. It's off-putting. We don't like it. It rubs us the wrong way. However, contextually, and I know you know a lot about this, Ted, you've studied metaphysics and so forth. Contextually, that's where the right and the wrong comes in, okay? It's relative. Relative to getting the job done, sometimes an ego is a good thing to have. I personally don't mind a big-time egotist that hates to lose, who's putting his ego on the line, that he's going to help me out and satisfy and get our country back working again. That's not necessarily a bad thing to have a big ego about. This guy hates to lose, and he's sticking his neck out. What do you think of that?
That's a good point. And also, I've often thought if he runs, I guess countries are not businesses, but if he can influence, America to be run more like a business, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
I'm sorry. Let me finish on the ego point. Conversely, all of them who are running have egos. Every one of them. So if we're going to talk about egos, let's talk about all the rest of them. All the rest of them, their egos are connected to serving oligarchs because they've all been in office for decades, and they've been part of the ruination of this country. And Hillary Clinton's ego, God help us from that one, because her ego is invested in war and destroying countries and destroying people and ruining even more lives.
I agree with that. I see no error in that comment. Joe, were you going to say something?
Oh, yes. There was basically that being a Buddhist for nearly a half a century, there's a term called a righteous ego and a self-righteous ego, or a shallow ego, the higher ego and the lower ego. And I think Trump and all of them have a combination of both. It's which ego, like Tom was saying, gets things done, and that's the righteous ego. That you want to you have an ego for the greater good of the world and the country, whereas a self-righteous ego is patting yourself on the back and telling how great you are, which Trump has a good dose of that too. But a lot of that he puts out there, and then he gets ridiculed for it, and he takes it. Like I think that segment on the Jimmy Kimmel show where Jimmy Kimmel brought out this book by Donald Trump, a children's book called Winners or Losers. Trump will allow himself to be dressed down and won't seek revenge on people who are,
or at least not overtly. I have to jump in because we're going to be out of time here. Ted, hold on 1 second, because there's another, if you can, there's another point I'd like to make about this, and I'd like to get your opinion of it. So too with you, Joe, and everybody else. You can call in 512-646-1984. Phone line's open. What do you think about the Trump phenomenon? We've got a half hour.
Attention foreign language students. Hit the books and get out those dictionaries. There's major good news about learning a second language. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, back to tell you about a new study on bilingualism after this.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Learning a foreign language brings many benefits, but a new study has found a major long-term health benefit to bilingualism. It may delay the onset of Alzheimer's. Canadian researchers reviewed hospital records of patients with dementia. They discovered that bilingual people were diagnosed 3 to 4 years later than those who only spoke one language, even though they had less education and job status. Though brains of bilingual people still develop Alzheimer's, the scientists said, speaking another language better prepares their brains to compensate for the onset of the disease due to the enhanced brain networks they've developed. Maybe it's time to brush up on that French, n'est-ce pas? I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
.com.
Live Free Speech Radio, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Something's wrong! Man, I swear something's wrong. Something's wrong! I don't think I'll be around here long.
Oh, yeah, Junior Watson, something's wrong. And that's why we do this show. And I think that's why Donald Trump is running for office, big ego and all. So we're here with our good friends, Ted in Texas and Joe Calhoun in Colorado. And you could be next, 512-646-1984. Give us a call. Come on in. The conversation's fine. Ted, can I ask you one more thing?
Sure.
About Donald Trump's ego. And he frustrates me because he says so many good things, I feel, and then he misses the mark. He overplays his hand sometimes, but he's very good at self-correcting. And by the way, and Joe, you'll be interested to know this too, audience, we're probably going to have Roger Stone back on within a couple of weeks. He's got another book coming out, so I'll talk with him. He's got Trump's ear. And sometimes I've heard things that we've said on this show that come out of Trump's mouth not too long afterwards. I'd like to think he's listening to the show. I'm sure that's not the case. It's a coincidence. But here's something, Ted, regarding Trump's ego. How would you feel if you were watching the TV and you saw Trump get up to the microphone at one of his rallies where he shoots from the hip and all this stuff, and he says, look, folks, I got a huge ego. There's no question about it. I don't make any bones about it. I don't try to hide that fact. It's me. What you see is what you get. Everybody knows this. But these other people on stage here, they are running for office. They got a huge ego also. Okay? And, I'm going to invest my ego. If he spells it out, I'm going to invest my ego in making this country great again, and I don't like to lose. If he acknowledged that, how would you feel about that?
Oh, that would be really wonderful. It would
be brilliant, wouldn't it?
It would. And, when you talk about voting for him, in Texas, I think what happens in Texas, unfortunately, is and you mentioned this earlier also, I believe, the Electoral College vote always goes for the Republican candidate. So like in Austin and Travis County, I've always voted for the third-party candidate, Cynthia McKinney, whomever. And the politicos, Republican politicos in Austin, they used to have a joke. They used to call it the People's Republic of Travis County, because historically, I think it was Travis County, the Austin area, and El Paso who would vote for the Democratic candidate, and then the rest of the state would vote for the Republican candidate. So I think, and that's the thing too, if he's really serious and he makes it all the way to the Republican convention, it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of dirty tricks they can pull at the Republican convention to keep them from moving forward.
And let me tell you something. The state of Texas is renowned for its dirty tricks at its conventions. And Texas didn't always vote Republican either, right? That was with the big 1968 switch with Nixon, right? But, that
is correct, yes.
That's correct, right? But, and I think we've had it on this show, Robert Parry, the great journalist who broke the Contra part of Iran-Contra. He tells in one of his books about the Bush family and the Republicans how During that changeover period, right? What was it, 1972? Eugene McCarthy, right? Eugene McCarthy was running. And the Democratic establishment, just like the Republican establishment right now, thought he would be a disaster if he became the nominee. He'd be a disaster for the party. So that, you know what that meant? That meant that Nixon and the Republicans were dying to run against him. And they fixed it so that he became the candidate for the Democrats. And you know how they did it?
No.
By rigging the Texas. I guess that was a primary or something, or the convention. I think they had it in Texas that year, something. But they went in there with their operatives, and there was a bunch of Democrats who were switching over to being Republicans right at that time, including John Connally, right, power broker in Texas, right, and what's his name? Who was Connally's money man again? Later on, Reagan made him Ambassador Strauss, right? I think the guy's name was Strauss. Those two guys were big power player Democrats in Texas who were already changing sides and becoming Republicans. But the last thing they did on their way out the door before they came out as Republicans was to sabotage the Democratic Party by fixing it so Texas, who never would have voted for the liberal McGovern, ended up picking him. And that's how the Democrats ended up with McGovern. So you talk about a rigged convention and that sort of thing. Texas has done that stuff before. Is that what do you think of that story?
I can believe it. I have not followed politics to the level of detail that you have, but I can believe it. What I was thinking of is at the national convention, if he makes it that far, what's going to happen? What's going to happen there? But, there's a lot of big businesses big in Texas, and businessmen may think he is a good candidate. I don't know. But
I think what it was that it was almost a tie, and the Texas delegation was going to break the tie, and everyone knew the Democratic Party was confident that the Texans would never vote for such a liberal guy, and they torpedoed it and they rigged it, and somehow they made a deal. Connally and Strauss on their way out the door, torpedoed the Democrats by making sure that the lousiest possible candidate got in against Nixon.
Yeah, Texas would not vote for the liberal guy then or now, probably.
But they did. That's what supposedly happened, and everyone, Perry Wright said it was a rigged thing.
You had mentioned your guest, Mr. Stone. I had not heard of him much until I listened to your show and other shows on this network, and boy, howdy, after listening to him, you go, I wouldn't want to. I knew the Bushes were, a bad nest of snakes, but man, the Clintons too. And I always heard there was bad goings on up in Mena, Arkansas, when they were I guess Bill was the governor of Arkansas.
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be where the cocaine was coming up from down Central America.
But you had recommended the movie 13 Steps, and you would recommend that people go see that?
13 Hours. Yes, I recommend that everybody go see it.
But it's not a propaganda film. I mean, I'm thinking of the other ones like American Sniper. I did not see that, truthfully, so I can't say. But The Hurt Locker kind of left me confused, and it was kind of a weird movie. And I did not see the movie about the airplane crash in Pennsylvania or whatever, let's roll or whatever they said. But you're saying that's not such an obvious propaganda.
Here's what I did not see. I never saw, what was that movie about Mogadishu that they did? I never saw that one. I never saw The Hurt Locker, which I think was merely a vehicle to set that Karen Bigelow up to make the stupid Zero Dark 30 movie, which, by the way, for anybody in the military or has been in the military, back me up on this. Do you know anybody in the military who says Zero Dark 30? Everybody I knew in the military used to say Oh Dark 30, but, that's just me, I guess. But I never saw that one. But I did see the American Sniper movie, and that I thought was, yes, absolutely propaganda. I didn't like it. I didn't care for it. And this movie seemed to be just more of an action movie based on what was happening there. And it didn't have, they were calling Washington and they weren't getting help, but there was no inclination, nothing to point out it was Hillary's fault or anything like that. It just showed what happened in those 13 hours or so that day at that compound.
I think you were mentioning Black Hawk Down.
That's right, Black Hawk Down. That was the Mogadishu. I never saw that.
That was made by one of the Ridley brothers, I think. I don't know if it was Scott Ridley or Tony Ridley, I think. But what I remember from that is the bad guy, the warlord in Mogadishu, said, this is our fight. You should not be here. Which that's kind of rings true with most of the goings on in the Middle East.
Well, we deserve to be everywhere because we're just so great that I don't know, if we accidentally kill 1 million people because of collateral damage, that's just fine and dandy, But if somebody else does something, deliberately kills 1,000 people or 3,000 people or whatever, it's the worst thing ever happened. But when we accidentally kill millions of, I said this before, and I got somebody I think calling up about it. One of our other great listeners. If we really are who we say we are as a country, Ted, don't we owe the Iraqis one hell of a big apology for destroying them and destroying their country because we thought they had weapons of mass destruction?
Yeah.
But that apology never happens, does it?
No. Clinton's tears on TV the other night, he wasn't crying when he blew up some poor wedding party with his drones,
Yeah, yep. All right, we're going to take a break, and maybe Ted will be with us, or maybe you will. 512-646-1984. We'll be right back.
Easy.
All right, good friends. Welcome back. Tom Kiley here, INN World Report Radio. Coming down the home stretch here. We've got Ted on the line. Hey, Ted, there's some music for you, eh?
Yes, sir. Good old Yes.
Good old Yes from the big Breakthrough album, the Yes album. I don't know. I must own like 3 or 4 copies of that thing. I played it so many times. But anyway.
He's defunct now because bass player Chris Squire died last year, I believe. So
did he?
Probably, yeah. I think.
Oh, my goodness. I didn't hear that.
So,
holy mackerel.
But I have a question for Mr. Calhoun there.
Actually, he's taking a break, and we have another caller on the line. So
give up my time. Let's have some more voices on the line here. Thanks for taking my call.
Well, every time. It's so good to hear from you, Ted. And send me an email, brother.
Okay.
And watch for my video. I'm going to send a video out to show you all what the snowstorm looked like here in New York.
Okay.
All right, good friends. We're going to go to Fancy now, who's on the line. But if you have sent me an email, I'm going to send you out an email tonight showing you a little video I made about 6.5 minutes long. You'll get to see where I live and what it looked like with the snow. My dog Charlie was out there helping me. He's one of my 3 dogs. And all that's on there. And, I think it's pretty cool. I'm just learning video editing, and I want to start making videos. So that's my first test, and I thought I'd share it with all y'all. And now we're going to go to and if you are not on my email list yet, just send me an email and say, hey, hi, Tom, and I'll put you on it. And now we're going to go to Fancy. Fancy, we have not heard from you in quite some time.
Yeah, that's right. I think you may remember when I first saw the first Hillary sticker, I was bemoaning it. I don't know if you remember that, but I was going, no, this is bad.
A bad dream coming back.
Yes. Well, I was listening to your interesting conversation about film, and I really like Black Hawk Down. It's really worthwhile, and the book is too.
Okay.
In the book, it kind of explains a little bit of the animosity that the natives feel. Like one of the things is the helicopters we had would land, and they were so powerful that they'd be blowing the tin roofs off of people's houses, blowing their clothes off. Our mighty equipment and stuff like that was just wreaked all kind of havoc there. We were so unpopular there.
Yep.
The book really lays it down, but Black Hawk Down is a good movie, and I also want to tell you Restrepo is a good movie.
Restrepo. Why do I know that name? Tell me a little bit about the movie.
Well, that's a movie where a bunch of Americans were defending a hill in Turkey, in Afghanistan, and it's just their daily grind.
Right.
They do, how they have to deal with things, the crap they have to go through, the life of living in a hole, in this little dugout hole, and what they have to put up with and everything, and the futility of it.
Okay. Yeah, I did not see Black Hawk Down, so I really can't comment on it. I did see American Sniper. Did you see that film?
No, I didn't, but I like war movies in general if they're good.
Yeah, I do. I used to anyway, but I don't like them when they're just trying to be propaganda films, trying to paint a different picture about what's going on. And I ended up seeing American Sniper because it was on the premium channel or something like that. We got to see it, and I did not like it because it was too one-sided. I appreciate when a creative person or a filmmaker goes to the effort that you report was done in Black Hawk Down, where they try to show you, the point of view of the locals as well as the Americans flying in and blowing everybody's roofs off, and I don't think there was enough of that at all in American Sniper.
Black Hawk Down just doesn't seem to show a point of view so much as it just shows the action, and the action just really it's horrifying, but it was really good. It wasn't a propaganda movie. But I also wanted to tell you that I watched Joyeux Noel. I don't know how to say it.
Yes. What did you think of that?
I rented that. I loved it. I watched it on a cold winter evening and really crying and everything.
Did you rent that because of us talking about it on the show here, or was that on your list anyway?
No, I got it because you talked about it.
Oh, I'm so happy that you did that. I trust that it got through to you, that film.
Oh, it certainly did. I just loved it. There's an old movie called Johnny Got His Gun, and it's a good old movie. I think it's from about 1960 or 1955 or something, but it's just sad. It's a sad thing about war. But there's a lot of good movies about war that explain, the horror and the sadness and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I kind of called to talk about Hillary because I want all the women to realize that just because she's a woman is no reason to vote for her. She has. I just don't like her partially. She has a sense of entitlement about the presidency. You talk about ego.
She's got an ego. She's got a huge ego herself. Did you see her chortling at the death of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi?
No, I didn't.
It was horrible. I think I have your email, Fancy.
Something bad about. Every time I find out something bad about her, I send it around to all my friends, emailing. I'm trying to get people to realize.
I'll send it to you, Fancy. You've sent me email before, haven't you?
No, I don't believe so. Oh, yes, I did. When I was trying to get moved to a man to be on your show, I tried so hard, and they just couldn't coordinate themselves to do it.
Okay.
Respect them.
Send me another one just in case, because I know I have you in here somewhere, but I don't remember, and I don't want you to say it on the air. And I'm going to send you a link to Joe's back with us now. But when they told Hillary Clinton that they found and killed Muammar Gaddafi, she started clapping her hands and she lit up and she was so happy. We came, we saw, we killed him. It was terrible.
She was watching a snuff video of his murder, where he was sodomized.
A real piece of work.
Terrible. This is a guy who raised Libya from the lowest country in Africa to the highest country in Africa, took the oil out of the ground. I'm sure he and his family pocketed some of it, but they gave it to the Libyan people. He was well loved, and we could not abide by that, and we had to get him out of the way, and they chose Hillary Clinton to prove her worth by doing it. And then I guess it's a quid pro quo. You do that, and then we can trust you. We'll make you the president.
Well, I'll let you go. I just want to say that, I can tell if you want to. If I'll send you my email, and anybody who wants a list of things wrong with Hillary, I'll be glad to send them one.
Yeah, well, send that to me as well, and I'll send you. I'm going to send out this video that I did, and I want to send you personally this video clip of Hillary Clinton. It's disgusting. They caught Muammar Gaddafi, these goons that we set loose in that country. They grabbed him, they beat him up, they beat him to a pulp, and then they sodomized him with a knife before they killed him.
Oh,
and she's clapping and she's thrilled.
Yeah, every time I see her chuckle, I almost want to put my fist through the TV.
Okay, well, thank you.
Because that's the same.
Well, thank you, Fancy. Thanks for calling. All right, friends, we still got a few minutes left. If somebody would like to call, 512-646-1984. Joe Calhoun's back with us now.
Okay, Tom.
Yeah.
My favorite war movie is The Victors with George Peppard, Eli Wallach, all-star cast. And it never got on VHS or CD.
It was that good, huh?
Yeah, they never put it on CD or VHS. You can download it, I think, on YouTube and watch it. But it's The Victors, and it just showed basically it's interesting because the last scene, the victors are the Soviet Union and the United States and of course England. But it's
is this a film where he runs into a Russian soldier on the street at night or something?
Yeah. That's it. That's the one.
I think at your recommendation, I might have watched that one night. I liked Apocalypse Now because it really took the veneer off of the propaganda for the Vietnam War, and it showed people, a different picture. And I took a very, very dear friend of mine who came back from Vietnam, a broken heroin addict, and it ruined him for the rest of his life. He drank himself to death by age 40, but I took him to see that film when it debuted here in New York City at the Ziegfeld Theater because I wanted to have somebody who was there sitting with me to tell me how realistic it was. And he said it was pretty realistic. It was, pretty much a lot more like it, what it was like over there for him than that stupid John Wayne movie.
Yeah. It's another war movie I like, but it's kind of, war is a kind of, a bunch of clowns against, the great Americans was The Longest Day. That was pretty good.
Well, that was kind of made like a little bit like a documentary. It was in black and white and had a lot of big stars and stuff.
But The Victors was more realistic, I think, of a film about war. And the best documentary series I'd recommend to everybody is World at War by the Thames. I thought it was BBC, but it's a British.
Is that the one where they have Sir Laurence Olivier doing the narration?
Yes.
Very moving, very powerful.
And what happens is HBO bought the rights to it, and so you can't see it on TV because they don't show it a lot, and so you have to go to Barnes & Noble and buy the set, Wow.
Well, Joe, that's all the time we have for tonight's show. How about that?
Well, very good.
Time flies, right? Time flies when you're talking about Hillary and Trump.
Yeah. I'm not telling anybody to vote for Trump, but sure as hell you don't vote for Hillary.
Well, I don't tell anybody how to vote either. I just try to give them the ammo that they'll need to inform themselves, one way or the other. But I respect everybody who listens to this program, especially people who contribute by calling and people who contribute like my good friend Joe Calhoun, who come on to talk with us.
Yeah, and everybody go to the church of their choice.
And everybody go to the church of their choice, or if that's no church at all, that's there you go. Church of the Poison Mind. Anyway, all right, friends, that's another show. Thanks, Joe. And, we do have Roger Stone coming in a couple of weeks, I think, and there'll be more great guests. We'll be back with you on Thursday night.